what your GM has been talking about. Because Ross Atkins is a guy that works for Mark Shapiro. The theory is that Ross Atkins is making all the decisions, but we all know that's fantasy. And now you've got a player who you've been talking about extending since practically the day you signed him. And you've been waiting for this year for years, as though not enjoying the window of the core that you had that didn't quite get to where they needed to go. And now you look at Biggio and you think about Bichette, who's finished with his deal pending free agent as well. And you're wondering, do we hang on, try it, run it back? Signing Vladimir Guerrero to a long-term contract has always been a dicey proposition because year in and year out, performance, lack of performance, he has always maintained that he will not take a discount to sign early. He will not take a discount to sign, period. He believes that his value as one of the best power hitters, the best players in the game, including his MVP season last year, where I think he finished 6th in the voting. His view is that in order to reach a long-term deal with me, you're going to have to pay a premium. And players have a right to do that. But teams have a right to not pay. What's happening in Toronto right now is Vladimir Guerrero has done something really super smart. Instead of having a deadline of 5 days after the World Series when you become a free agent, he has said, my deadline is before I report to spring training. Now, that's not written in the CBA. Generally, I find that when players say that, they're trying to force the hand of the team. We signed a player to a long-term deal after a deadline of spring training, right during spring training, when we came up with an agreement with Yelly and just said, how about this, 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 and this? And he said, okay, I'm in. Vladimir Guerrero will sign a long-term contract with you in Toronto any day from now until the World Series starts. Any day. All you have to do is give him $450 over 10, and I promise his deadline doesn't matter. So don't be fooled. Don't be pressured. Ross Atkins has a quote that he wants you to really think about, very purposeful. In case you didn't know this, he left that part out, but that was the preamble to his quote. And this is him. Everything needs to be factored in, but it needs to be factored in historically and not reactively. Being disciplined to our valuations, being disciplined to how we think about building the best possible roster. There's so many variables. Wow. That's some value-added GM babble, isn't it? Normally, when we're signing a player, we're not factoring in anything. We're not paying attention to our payroll going forward. We're not thinking about tomorrow or today. We're just thinking about the amazing press conference, sitting next to the agent at the dais, announcing to the world that we re-signed our players, so we haven't gotten better incrementally. We've just increased our payroll, but man, it feels good. What a relief. Phew. The Blue Jays defending 3 times a World Series appearance, 2 times winning the pennant, 1 time winning. Oh, wait a minute. That didn't happen with Vladimir. The push, the urge to keep your player, that is media and fan related. And what Ross Atkins is saying to you all is pay attention. What the player is asking for is something that we're not going to give. And the reason we're not going to give is it's the wrong move for the team. This is not about keeping a championship team together. Everything Ross Atkins is saying should be informing your opinion that there will be no long-term deal signed by Vladimir Guerrero before he reports to spring training. Vladimir Guerrero, the reason he's not going to sign is that Rogers, they're a public company. They have to run a responsible ship, and they understand that when they're competing against the Yankees, the Red Sox, or when they're competing in general in Major League Baseball, that the long-term contracts end up being painful at the end. And Vladimir Guerrero has not shown in any way that he will not become comfortable, shall we say. So a deal that Vladimir would say he wants 10 years, 460, you are looking at the end of a deal that doesn't work. So the hardest thing to do is to let a player like that get into free agency and go. But when you've got a player who you know isn't needing the money, because obviously the amount of money his father got paid, He's got a father telling him that he's the best. All fathers tell their sons that. There's a misunderstanding of his notional value in the game in free agency. He will not get a 10-year Aaron Judge type deal, Juan Soto deal, none of it. It's just not in his future. And he just doesn't know it yet. And he's not going to learn that by the time he reports.